Welcome everybody who is joining us, and if you're watching this after it's recorded, thank you for taking the time to tune in. My name is Shannon Adcock, and we have a group of panelists joining us this Saturday morning to basically just talk about their experiences with what's happening in Illinois education and government and policy that's affecting, our way of life, our families, our careers, etc. So I'll be making introductions. First, I'm going to share my screen, which is probably just going to show everybody who's on the panel, whomever's talking, their little picture, and then the actual slides. So I'm just going to do a couple slides, and then we'll delve into all of y'all being able to talk about your stories. So I'm going to share my screen here and go through these slides. So again, welcome, Awake Illinois. We're hosting this Saturday morning live stream, and I want to thank you. I know you could be doing a lot of things with your Saturday morning, so thank you for spending this time with us. And the fact that you're here means that you are awake to the issues that are affecting us here in Illinois. So thank you for tuning in. Real quickly, just a brief rundown of Awake Illinois. We are a registered not-for-profit, and we launched in April of 2021 from Naperville, Illinois. And the goal is really to maintain a mobilized presence of community-based advocates throughout the state, very grassroots form of advocacy. And we're appealing right now to our policymakers, our local school boards, our municipal leadership, state leadership, legislators, and just putting forth a consistent message to ensure that the will of the people is carried out here in our state. So we do that with branded and strategic messaging. And ultimately, we're just looking to advocate for the preservation of our constitutional liberties and parental rights, which we'll talk about later through these testimonials. And we're spreading awareness throughout our communities on the issues that are affecting our kids and our way of life, our American way of life, beautiful way of life. And the great news is that advocacy is working. Voices are elevating continually over the summer, particularly. People have been, so frustrated, and here we are gearing up for, another uncertain school year. Businesses are scrambling with the latest Illinois policies. So more and more people are joining the fight against this Illinois government overreach, and people are waking up. So right now, Awake Illinois has 28 chapters statewide, and we have various mediums of social outreach to connect messaging to the people, to give resources to Illinoisans. Our website, awakeil.com, has resources, so check any of those platforms out to get more information. Just some quick updates. There is a special session scheduled for this Tuesday in Springfield, August 31st at noon. They're supposed to talk about the congressional map boundaries, but people are very worried about some of these legislative actions that could take place, including House Bill 4135, which will basically attempt to replace 2789, which was flooded with witness slips a few months ago. So they're looking to perhaps give ISB the ability to revoke recognition status for schools. And this is on a lot of people's radar this weekend. So Awake Illinois issued some homework for you guys to talk to your legislators and say, hey, we have concerns if in fact you do, and Awake Illinois and our members certainly do. So late last night, we put out a letter, a statement to over 100 legislators that we emailed with our concerns, and that's available at the website. You can take a look at it. And with the vaccine mandate that's coming down, people who have employers that are mandating it are very worried. So there is a religious objection resource that's available through Liberty Counsel and Harry Mehet. He put together a fabulous 8-part series, and it guides you if you have sincerely held religious exceptions or objections to the vaccine. You can reference that resource, and it's incredibly helpful, and a lot of people are having success with that. Lastly, we're going to have some new health rights forms for people to submit to their employers, citing the Healthcare Conscience Act in Illinois, along with other protections regarding your health rights. And there's also going to be a FOIA 411 video that we're going to put out, because a lot of you have been rightfully FOIAing to get to the bottom of some of these policies. So that's coming this week. And without further ado, I'm going to show you here, these are going to be the folks talking about their perspectives on Illinois policy. Again, I'm Shannon Adcock. I'm president of Awake Illinois. I'm just going to read everybody's names in the bio, and then I'm going to exit out of this screen share, and then we'll have everybody on to talk. We have Steve Lucy. He's a father of 3. He's a farmer, a 17-year veteran of the Warsaw School Board, and also executive director of We Stand for Our Students, which is a great advocate group in West Central Illinois. They've been doing some really wonderful things supporting their communities, and we're glad to have him as the West Central Awake Illinois chair. We have Jeff Ferguson joining us. He's a father of a Warsaw high schooler, a farmer, and also an advocate for We Stand for Our Students. Sheri Urlacher is joining us from Palatine. She's a mother of 2 high school girls and an advocate for medical freedom and parental choice. And we're happy to have her as the Awake Palatine chair right now. And we have Dan Vasnos. I see you, Dan, here. Thank you for joining us. He is a father of a son with special needs, and as of yesterday, a former 20-year high school athletic administrator. So I'm going to exit out of this screen now, and we can get to chatting. So I see all of you are on here, and I'm going to ask Steve if you want to start and talk about some of the recap of what all of y'all have done in West Central and what really makes you awake to these issues in Illinois and what y'all are fighting down there.
Very well. First, I would just like to throw out our condolences and our support for our fallen heroes this last couple of days, and everybody that's really standing every day for our freedoms and why we're actually here. And that's I think a very important thing that people sometimes miss about all the details of what's going on with our groups and our advocacy here in Illinois. So I know we all agree on that, and I think that's important to keep that perspective. But what we've done here in West Central Illinois from the beginning, and Jeff knows this, he's been with us from the start. I was on the school board for 17 years. I got off in April. Throughout the last year, was very concerned about what was happening to our children. My wife's a teacher in our district. She has been for 20 years. So I'm very in tune to education. We saw that this was just wrong. So several of us started to speak up about it. And, we Stand for Our Students, kind of started right here at my kitchen table with a few folks from around Basco. And we just grew from there with good people, standing for the rights of our students. And it honestly it's been a struggle throughout. As you know, Shannon, it's difficult to speak up. And recently, especially recently, we've seen a lot of, sort of hate and things like that people throw at us. But I think we have to absorb that and stick to our goals, which is, advocating for parents and students, and now teachers. I think we're starting to advocate for teachers now, as we've seen some overreach on their part as well. And basically, we started this, and I think it was in March, Warsaw School Board passed a resolution saying that, and I was on the board at that time, and I voted to pass this resolution as well. We disagreed with the state of Illinois and what they were doing. We basically just said, as a dissent, we disagree with that. Now, we still followed the guidelines at that time. But as a board, we stood up vocally and said, we don't agree with this. And I would encourage boards even today to do that now. If they don't agree with this and they don't agree with not having local control, stand up and say so. So then in June, we passed a resolution in Warsaw to basically go mask optional, not to discriminate against vaccination status, not to quarantine healthy kids. And that was fine. The governor even said this summer that we have some local control, which I believe we've always had, but he came out and said that. So my phone, then we got down here closer to August, and he on August 4th set a new mandate for masks in schools. And then basically they started threatening schools with probation. They did put Warsaw on probation and several other schools that were going to be optional, as you know. And so we questioned that with the ISBE. We questioned their authority on that. And we haven't got an answer of how they can actually do that. Well, then they went to the Illinois High School Association, and they made a ruling which we're starting to question whether they can do that within their bylaws. It doesn't show that they can do that. So there's a lot of questions of how these administrative bodies can do what they've done to schools. And it boils down to they're taking our control locally away. And so that's where we stand right now today.
Thank you, Steve. And for anybody who's not aware, Steve had a very eloquent message for the Illinois State Board of Education at their in-person meeting. Was it 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
My concept of time is crazy right now. But yeah, you were the second to arrive to the meeting, right, Steve? And they had you speak second to the last of the 2 hours of remarks.
That's correct.
But your message was crystal clear, and it was so calm and so Americana. It was this very sincere message to the board that, hey, we should have local autonomy on these policies. And it really struck a chord with me when you said, your Warsaw school district has graduated such successful kids that go into the military, who become teachers. And you made the point that, if they go get educated elsewhere, out of Illinois, they're having a really hard time rationalizing coming back. And, that's just such a tragic part to the Illinois legacy right now. And so, I give you guys a lot of credit. You're really trying to preserve that, that integrity of your community. And so kudos to you for speaking to ISB. I think you had the game ball when you put the hat on at the end and, walked away. And so, yeah, that was very impactful. But thank you for all of your advocacy, Steve. And would you like to introduce Jeff? And Jeff can talk about his story there as a parent in Warsaw.
I would. I've known Jeff for years and years now. My son and his son were in the same class and graduated high school together and are still friends to this day. In fact, his son's one of my son's in the military, and he's not around here. He's in Louisiana right now, but Jeff's son still keeps in touch with him. And so it's still that's part of our whole community. I mean, that's the thing about this area and these schools and these small schools, and they support each other still that far away from home. And Jeff's just a farmer like me. He's he's the salt of the earth, and his kids have gone through this. He's had, and he'll explain that, but he was there in January talking to the Warsaw School Board and all the way through. So Jeff understands everything we're dealing with, and he's like me. He's a farmer. Generations of his family have been here in this county, and we want to do our jobs, and that is peacefully feeding the nation and the world, and that's what we do. And we really don't need the government to tell us how to raise our kids, because we've done that for years and years and years successfully. So Jeff, here you go.
Thanks, Steve, for the kind words. Steve kind of alluded to the reason I'm here. I'm a father of four. My oldest two children, both boys, went through the Warsaw school system. Actually, Nauvoo, Colusa is where my school district actually originates from. But Warsaw and Nauvoo came to an agreement several years, and actually my oldest son was the first student that went through the whole convergence process between the two school districts. Actually, we let our high school student or high school recognition go by the wayside, and we tuition our kids to Warsaw High School, and Warsaw tuitions their junior high to our grade school. And we've got a unique relationship that's been very successful up to this point. In March of 2020, when COVID first hit, basically none of us knew what the situation was or how severe or what this was going to end up. So we were okay in March of 2020 with closing things down, shutting things down. You know, we were led to believe that, you know, wear the mask for 2 weeks and let this curve flatten out and this will all be over with. Well, we all know that's backed up a lot now, and we're still fighting this. But what really inspired me to get involved was watching my senior of 2020 class just lose the best days of his life. He missed his high school baseball season. He missed his graduation. He missed his prom. He missed getting his state FFA degree. Now, he got all those things virtually or however you want to claim, and I applaud the school districts for doing what they're doing to try to make it better for us. But I watched a change happen in him, a change that's probably irreversible. He's mad at the world. Anytime he fights for every little, if he's pushed in a corner, he comes out angry. And he's got a younger sister. She's a senior right now. And I didn't want the same to happen for her. As you know, Illinois wasn't playing any sports through the winter months. My daughter had missed her volleyball season. And my wife and a group of parents started saying this, we're just not going to have this happen. We're going to play volleyball somewhere. So they began going to Iowa, playing club volleyball. And that was in January, I believe. Timelines are all convoluted today. But so I started going to the Warsaw School Board in January and started asking questions. The first meeting I sat there totally silent. I was just going to see if we were pushing all the gray areas, whether we were trying to get our kids' lives back. And the first meeting, I was very, very happy with what Warsaw was doing. I went back in February, and I saw somewhat of a change in their push in Warsaw. It was less than the previous month. And we had all been very involved when making calls to IHSA and trying to get our kids' lives and sports back and education back. And because I do believe extracurriculars are a valid point in our kids' education, probably more so than, you know, I won't say reading, writing, or arithmetic, but some of the other classes they take. So Steve and several other board members and myself started making massive amount of calls to IHSA, ISBE. What can we do? And they did come up with a plan, and we did start sports, and we got a season, albeit masked, but we had a season. So I continued going to board members, and in March sometime we passed that resolution, and that's when Steve started. Basically, we stand for students, and I joined, and I became more active, not only for our community, but our, what do I want to call it, extended community. We've spoken, I think, 11 different school board meetings that became very involved with trying to get the mask off the kids, which we all know don't work. You know, we're right across the river from Fort Madison, Iowa, and we're right across the river from Missouri. And the whole time we're not being able to go to school without mask, or go to basketball events, or go to football events or baseball. Missouri's over there playing maskless. And as you alluded to, we're losing students from the state of Illinois. We're going to lose more if we don't stand up and continue this fight. And so we got involved. I got involved with Steve. Like I said, we've been trying to help all boards follow kind of what Warsaw's done, but do it on their own. I mean, the wording of these resolutions or their dismay with the state, we're not so worried about that or hung up on that. We just want them to get active. And I have, and we are still active. And as I watch what happened last night or yesterday with House Bill 4135, I just cringe, because the state has far overstepped their bounds. They know it, and we can't challenge it, or we haven't challenged it.
Right.
Frustrated with our legislators and senators in the state of Illinois that won't stand up and at least challenge executive orders. So that's why I'm here. That's a little about me. And I
Thank
go
you.
from there, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you for elevating your voice and for getting involved. And it's truly, you know, the regular taxpayer, right? You guys say you're just farmers, but it's true. You are salt of the earth, and all of us has a place in, you know, in advocating. It doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your income level, it doesn't matter your religion, your color, any of it. It's just all about preserving, to Steve's point, you know, what our men and women in the military are fighting for, and that is our freedoms and this beautiful Republican way of life. And it's so hard to see, you know, our youngest and, you know, purest of minds and our kids being dealt this hand. So I know that what you guys are doing is having real impact, and what you're teaching your kids, right, is so important to take a stand. And so, you know, I give you a lot of props as a parent, and I think that with continued advocacy and with really sharing everybody's story, I do think it's going to give that many more people courage to take the stand that you guys have all done over there. So thank you, Jeff. We're going to get a little bit more into the 4135, and you guys can talk a little bit more about, you know, the sentiment on some of this over the weekend and what you're talking to about people. But I want to give Sheri a chance to introduce herself and talk about what it's like being a mom right now of 2 high school girls in the suburbs of Chicago. Sheri, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning. My 2 daughters are junior and freshman at Fremd High School, District 211. They were in private school for middle school, so we kind of missed a lot of the nonsense, which was purposeful. But we chose to go back to public school for high school, and the very first board meeting I ever went to was when my daughter was coming out of 8th grade and she was going to be a freshman. 2019, 211 was in the process of passing their policy that transgenders get unrestricted access to the locker room that they identify as. So that was kind of when I started going to board meetings and, you know, seeing how I can get involved, because I didn't agree with that at all. My daughters are athletes, and I don't think that they should be changing in bathrooms with a biological boy. So then it's just been nonstop since then. Last year, I actually unenrolled my sophomore 2nd semester and let her go to Texas to stay with her older sister to go to school because Texas was open. And our school board has never fought for us. They just don't. They've never fought for us. So no push for in-person learning. There was nothing. We are following. And I had a conversation with the principal via email yesterday over a whole different topic. But I said, why do we even have you? Why do we even have local school boards? Why do we have anything? If you guys are going to continue to say to me, we're following. What you're saying to me is you're participating in fascism, because that's exactly what that is.
Right. Yeah, it's such a shame to not see courage, right? That's why they're there, to really lead the will of the people. And Sheri, real quickly, a quick tidbit about Palatine. So the Palatine School District has a pending lawsuit against it because they fired an educator who was criticizing the riots of the 2020 summer on her
personal Facebook
social
page.
Media.
Her personal page.
Her personal page, and it's all there and it's documented in her in the article on her case. It's extremely worrisome because this is a prime example of cancel culture. And so it's very real in Palatine School District. And I know that she has legal counsel that is representing her to fight that. She's a 20+ year educator, right? A veteran educator. So our heart breaks for her, and we hope she finds justice, because the whole concept of just this radical woke narrative is so destructive. So Palatine has that nice kink in its armor, and so they're they're consistent. At least they've continued to double down against your daughter, who was suspended on day one, right, for not wearing a mask.
Correct.
And she has tell us about what her experience has been like since then, because she's trying to comply, right? But it's
she's pretending. I mean,
and what was it that was going on this past week?
We started school on the 12th, and both of my girls have just basically told me that they're becoming increasingly more strict with the masks, and not every teacher is, the mask police, but there are a few. But over the days, like my daughter came home Thursday and said the teacher took time out of class to lecture the students on proper mask wearing. I mean, I was not only pissed off, but I was shocked. I mean, has anybody done the math on how much education our children lost last year?
Right.
Because I know at Fremd, my daughter was doing A and B days, and she was done with school every day at 12:30. Okay.
Yeah, ridiculous. Right.
So they did not get the education that they should have gotten. So you mean to tell me now that we're back in school, you think it's appropriate to stop and waste valuable class time lecturing our students on how to wear a mask?
Right.
So I actually emailed the teacher and asked her to provide me with any kind of education or documentation, any type of certification that she has received in the medical community that qualifies her to lecture our students on wearing a medical device. She forwarded my email to the principal, and he's the one that responded to me, and his only response was, "We're following revised public guidance for schools supporting the return to in-person learning."
Yeah, follow the script. And you
so
did
I tweeted the information.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah. They all have the same response. It's drafted by their legal counsels, by their, everybody who's towing the line for this government overreach. So you're in the thick of it with high schoolers, and thank you for being an advocate. There's nothing stronger than the call to protect your children, right? And I know it was an upsetting first day for your daughter, where they basically sequestered her, right, for the whole day when she.
It was a one-day suspension because she would not put the mask on at all, like not even, I don't know how many students wear it properly. It's not 100%.
Right.
But because she would not put it on at all, she was suspended. Right.
And now they hand out masks at the door, right?
They do.
Ones that are labeled, this will not protect you from
yes,
viruses or from COVID-19.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. There's an email that I have a copy of that the governor asked, I think, I don't want to misquote, but anyway, the Republican caucus to provide N95s for schools. So that's what's next. This is what I don't understand.
Yeah, we're following that. There's some interesting things coming out about that. And I think it was referenced the K95 masks too, which we know come out of China, the manufacturer.
If anyone can figure this out, like that's what's next, right? The masks that we put on our children that are breathable or whatever we choose, those aren't going to be good enough. They're going to put actual medical devices and demand that our children restrict their breathing at school every day. And this is my issue. When are more parents going to stop complying?
Good question.
That is the only way forward, mass non-compliance.
Right.
If people can't catch on, we have been in this situation for 19 months.
Right.
So at this point, anyone that thought they could comply their way out of this and back to freedom, please tell me a time in history when any people have ever complied their way out of a situation like this.
Right.
And I was called crazy a year ago for saying, today it's the masks, soon it's going to be the vaccine, and here we are.
Right. Sheri, you're going to like the video I have saved at the end. Anytime I've done these webinars, I try and have leave it on a note of humor. I believe in humor as a good coping mechanism. And the title of it is If an Authoritarian Was a Motivational Speaker. So you're going to really like what the spin he puts on it. JP Sears, he's real funny. So we've lost our minds, right? People who are not willing to fight at this stage in the game come on, we got to rally these troops, right? And so I think the more people hear your stories of average people, you know, we're not politicians, we're not, you know, rolling around our mansions like marbles. We're regular people, right? We are what sustain this republic. And so all of your voices and what you're doing to take a stand is so important. Dan, you're last but not least. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday morning. It's good to have you here. I like your shirt, advocate like a, put it up,
Father.
like a father. There you go.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
yes, proud dad joining us. And you have an interesting perspective as somebody who's been a school administrator, and you have a story to share. So please talk to us.
Yeah. So, you know, yesterday was my final day in education, right? I think I've been going to school since I was 5 years old. So it's going to be a different experience for me on the outside now. But, you know, over the last, I would say 18 months or so, probably the last, 14 months, because when school shut down in March, we were all kind of trying to figure this whole thing out. But since, I'm a 20-year high school administrator. I've been in a few schools, or I've served as athletic director and assistant athletic director. And, I kind of had this, last year when the kids finally came back into the building, albeit not normal, I just kind of sat back and I watched what was going on. We, being in athletics, it's one thing to wear a mask all day in a classroom. It's another thing to wear a mask when you're outside, when you're inside an 80, 90 degree gym, sweating, breathing heavy and hard. And I just started taking notes and noticing that, I'm part of this problem, right? I'm the one that is, overseeing athletes every single day and coaches every single day, and, dictating to them certain guidelines that have been, pushed on us as high school administrators. And I believe in none of it. I don't believe kids should be kept apart. I mean, the 6 foot, 3 foot rule, whatever have you, no more high fives at the end of games. Just what athletics meant to me growing up and through college. And then just watching these kids, these juniors and seniors, the last few years lose out on that normalcy, all out of fear. And, so I finally, my job entailed last year, COVID testing, contact tracing, everything I never signed up for, or nothing I signed up for, but I did it. And there was only so much I could do. And I decided over the last few months, in speaking with my wife, we're expecting another child. So I'd rather spend my time and efforts outside now, fighting for kids like my son, fighting for kids like everyone else on this call and everyone else listening. While I'm going to be advocating for my son because he has special needs, he's no different than any other kid in Illinois. He's going to be going to school here in January. And, I'm going to, his development depends on a lot of the things that we all depended on growing up. Learning, right? Seeing expressions, hearing, playing with his friends, watching the teacher talk. Everything that is about my face, my son will need to in order to develop properly. So that being said, I turned in my keys yesterday, and I'm going to join and advocate on the outside from now, knowing what I know going on the inside. Knowing some of these guidelines. I just wish there was more people that weren't afraid to stand up like myself. I know there are plenty of teachers and coaches and administrators out there that know what we're doing to kids is wrong. And we've gone away from that kids first mantra into, that teacher administrator first mantra, protecting themselves. And that's not what education is about. Education is about the kids. It's always been a kids first mentality. And that's gone. And with that, I exited stage left because my morals have been conflicted. And like I've shared with a few people before, I felt like I was living a lie the last 18 months. And I no longer need to do that. I no longer want to do that. And now it's time to take my fight to the outside.
Wow, Dan, I would clap for you, but it might be a little awkward. But I think that it is such an important perspective for you as a 20 plus year administrator, it's a big loss for your, your school and your district. But I do think you will have great impact by advocating and bringing that perspective to really inspire others to call this out for what it is, and that is wrong, right? And it's disappointing to see in the medical profession at first do no harm, right? There's a lot of questions there about whether that's been followed, and for you to maintain your kids first advocacy is so important. And so thank you. I'm sure it was hard yesterday turning in your keys, and there was a football game, I'm sure. Were you able to connect with some of the folks who you were kind of saying goodbye to?
Yeah, I spent the day yesterday, saying bye to, coaches and staff alike at the school I was at. I took some phone calls from some other athletic administrators that I've worked with in the past, and without saying their names, a lot of them said, "Good for you." So I wish more people. I mean, I do have an opportunity. It's not like I'm going to be sitting home collecting unemployment. I'm fortunate enough to have an opportunity to do something in the private sector. But I just wish there were more teachers and administrators that stood up and asked questions and pushed the envelope and stood with the parents and stood with the kids. And hopefully that comes soon. And I'm here to advocate on their behalfs and to lend them the support they may need.
Thanks, Dan. I can't help but, it's bittersweet, right? Because you hear stories of people who are having to make such dramatic changes to their career, to their family dynamic. But my hope, and maybe it's utopian, but you got to try, right? Is that this will result in some amazing reform. We're so overdue for it, and I think this is fertile ground for it. And my utopian vision is that your son, who's a little one right now, that by the time he's in kindergarten, heading into elementary, that some progress has been made, right? And so we can celebrate some success stories, so that he has a better go of it when he's in school. So I want to loop back and Steve, if anything hits your mindset, having been on a school board for 17 years, hearing parents, hearing, Dan's story, when people say, how do we go on the offensive, right? How do we stop playing, armchair quarterback? Is that it? Armchair, what is it? Monday quarterback? What's the expression? What is
Monday
it?
morning.
Monday morning.
Monday morning.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm basic. So yeah, Monday. So what hits
Having
your
a meltdown
when it comes to, people who are watching and say, I get it. I have the same story as you. What should be my top, action items going forward?
Well, as far as the school board is concerned, and Dan just hit some amazing points. Jeff and I have questioned this ourselves. Why are we not seeing every single athletic director in the state of Illinois that is a member of the IHSA calling the IHSA? And I said this, I think it was probably February last year, maybe, Jeff. I said to our administrators and our athletic director, what if 800 member schools, athletic directors, called the IHSA and said, you know what? We're not doing this. We're not putting masks on kids on a basketball court. What would that look like? And same with superintendents now, right now, today, after this after this vaccine mandate came down to some of their employees, what if every superintendent in the state of Illinois stood up and said, you know what? We don't think this is good for our district. We have to have a viable district, and these communities are being torn apart on decisions that they're not able to make locally. So why can't we say, hey, let's stop this? If we had imagine if we had, so we advocate, right? And we're getting a little bit of a voice, and the moms are doing well advocating like you guys. But what if school administrators did that? And that was a stark reminder to me when I went to the State Board of Education that, they have all these people come in, very professional, in suits and ties, and they're wonderful people. They spoke up. That's great. And then a couple of guys like me were there, but we were pushed to the side because we don't matter. They don't realize that there's a lot of people out there like me and you and Jeff that are really highly educated people. Just because we don't have a suit and tie and our school administrator doesn't mean anything. But that being said, if those school administrators are important, which they are, let's have those people voice that to the state, you know?
Right.
Let's have them voice the concerns that they're hearing from us and parents and teachers. Let's have them be one voice to the state. And I think this division is what's causing the state to be able to do what they're doing to us. And
Right.
I see it in school boards. School boards need to come together and say, hey, we don't agree with this. And I think that's where they need to be. They all need to be saying, we do not agree with this. And it's unfortunate that we have school boards that won't stand up for that. They won't fight for that. And they just, I call them yes people. They're like, okay, we have a mandate, so yes, we have to do this. And we heard that at several meetings. Jeff and I've been to, we've heard that from people. We can't do anything. We can't do anything. My dad taught me a long time ago, can't doesn't work. That's not in our vocabulary around
Right.
here. You can't get anything done by saying we can't. As Dan said, so many people have had their lives changed with athletics and extracurricular things in our schools. My life has changed from that. My kids' lives have been changed from that. And you know, we have to give those kids that opportunity. And right now, this is going on the third year that we're not giving them that opportunity. And I really don't understand why more athletic directors don't speak up like Dan. And I get it, you know, it's difficult, but I think the path forward is everyone to speak up about this. And that's the only path forward. That, and absolutely the masks, if you comply with that, you're enabling them. We have done that for a year and a half. We were scared about it at first. Now we're not scared of it. We have to say no. And if we don't say no, this will continue.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that there was a Facebook Live I saw with Tom DeVore, who's been trying to give people legal advice. And, you know, he's running for appellate court. He's given great advice. His last Facebook Live really struck a chord with me because he basically is pissed, Sheri, to use your word. He's like, why aren't you all getting mad? You know, like where every parent should be mad, every grandparent should be mad. I mean, this is not what we want for our kids, right? For our posterity. Why aren't you all getting mad? And it's amazing how fear is getting in the way of that, right? There's just so much fear and or apathy. Neither are good. And so all of these advocacy groups, you know, there are so many that are bursting in Illinois and beyond. And I think it's because those people who, you know, you all are in it from the beginning, you've taken the punches, you're laying the ground to say, come on, like we've been doing, join us, right? We can do this together. You're not one person, you know, going to a board meeting, you're with the community, right? And so it's kind of like, what more do we have to do besides literally send a limo to people's houses and pick them up and hold their hand the whole way to get there and say, raise your voices, right? So I appreciated that, Tom, you're hitting on it. All these people, we got to get people fired up because time is of the essence.
Totally agree, Shannon. Dan, I applaud you for courage to step out. I mean, and say those things. Part of my story that I didn't say, Shannon, was when we were allowed to play sports, finally the first night of volleyball conditioning via wearing a mask, my daughter passed out at the school. My wife and I were called. We hustled down there. By the time we got there, she was all fine. But the fear you're talking about of getting involved is the same fear that made me get involved. I saw her pass out from something I felt was wrong from the beginning.
Right.
So that inspired me to really get involved with this whole deal and make sure that that wasn't going to continue to be oppressed on our children.
Right.
We just can't stand back and let this be steamrolled over us.
No, and I liked what you said, Jeff, when you said, you know, the fog of war in the spring of 2020, that was understandable, right? It was uncharted territory for a lot of people to say, what do we do and how do we do right by our nation, by the world, by our communities? And there was some prudent discernment and tough decisions that were made. But here we are in August of 2021. That ship has sailed. We have to move on. And people are just clinging to this sense of safetyism, all in the name of punishing essentially and abusing our kids by not giving them every opportunity to progress. So it's heartbreaking on the one hand, but to know that parents like you are fed up and making a difference, that's what's going to take.
Steve and I talk basically daily anymore, it seems like. And we both see this with our own eyes, and we just can't understand why others can't see through the fog that's going on out there. Dan said it. Teachers and administrators know this is wrong.
Yeah.
But they'll stand with their mask on and fight against us at board meetings and tell us this is what they have to do. I think more in fear of their occupation than anything. And I get it, but I don't get it.
Right.
You know, they can't fire you all. We're in Illinois' got a teacher shortage going on right now. The nation's got a teacher shortage, and it's no wonder, because mandates like this are being pushed down that force them not to do what their real passion is to teach kids.
Right.
I don't blame the teachers at all for this. I do not. I want to surround myself with them and try to convince them to fight with us, not against us.
Right, for sure. Yeah, it was really interesting. You know, the Naperville 203, we have two districts here where we live, 203 and 204, and 203 had a whole, kerfluffle because they've been trying to work through their teacher contract since January. It expired in June, and they organized all of these walks before the board meeting from a high school to the middle school where the board meeting was held, and they wear these shirts, and they have a megaphone and the teacher, union president, and they were organized. And this was the first time we saw organized educators coming to board meetings, and it was in the name of the teacher contract. And those of us parents who have been rallying for the schools to reopen, for the kids to get unmasked, if that's their choice, right? They don't have that choice right now. We don't tell anybody to take their mask off if they want it on. I just want to be clear on that. But we want the choice for our children's bodies, right? My child, my choice. And we've been out there, trying to get people, aware of these issues. And when we show up to the board meeting, the one side were the teachers for the contract fight, and then the other side were the parents. And to your point, Jeff, that has to be blended. There should not be a divide. And the time is now to really unite. And until that happens, I think it's going to be harder and harder for them to advocate for what they want to see for autonomy of their choices and ours. So I would love to see that blend. We have yet to see it in our community. It shouldn't be a divide. But Awake Illinois is open to helping everybody. We want to advocate for all of our communities in total. But I would at least, I don't know about you, Sheri, and your teachers, how many you feel are really, worried about their own, vaccine mandates, et cetera, about the masks of kids. Do you have any allies in education in your kids' school district?
I do not. I've been speaking out about this since the beginning, and it's no secret that I'm angry, along with lots of other parents who are angry, that our board, our administrators, not a single person has actually stood up and advocated for any of our athletes, our students, nothing. And the board, our board will fight for you if they agree with the message. So that's just.
So it's one-sided. They're only listening to one side. Yeah, that's how it is in 204. A couple of our board members from FOIAs have said, and our superintendent echoed this. How do we address the small vocal minority?
Well, that's the thing. Our school board meetings,
they call us the small vocal minority.
Yeah, but we're not, because at the school board meetings, it's person after person after person after person after person. Okay. Asking these board members to vote for choice. These are our children, and we have medical power of attorney of our children that are under 18 years old, okay? We want choice. there's always a few. They manage to, get a few to come in there and talk about how we need to put masks on our children to protect other people, blah, 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 that message. But it's always majority speaking and advocating for choice, yet it just falls on deaf ears.
It does.
I mean, our boardroom is packed with signs. Like, we've got a great community. I mean, they bring the big signs, unmask our children. I mean, it's great.
Right.
The board,
That's deaf ears. Yeah, they're towing the line. And I'm curious, Dan. I know you're with your kiddo there, but I am curious. If you have that insider perspective, what is your rally call right now to administrators? What, the people say, well, I gotta just, keep it, keep the waters calm because, I just need to get to my pension and that's just how it is. What is your rally cry right now to administrators who get that this is wrong and don't know what to do?
Yeah, I think, and pardon me, I'm playing with my son behind me. Pardon me for that, but I think the biggest thing with in being in education is that big pension, and I'm so close to it. I don't want to, ruffle the waters by any means, and cause any problems. I just feel like there's not enough questions that administrators are asking or teachers are asking. They're just complying, and that's the same thing you see with in the general population when you go out and everyone's just masked up. They'd rather be told what to do than to do what's right and they know what's right. They know that the covering of kids' faces is not right in schools. So I think with administrators, I think that the conversations. I mean, I've had some conversations with a few of them that don't want to be athletic directors that are sick and tired of following these mitigations and are thinking about actually going back into the classroom because they just want this whole thing to kind of end. But it's tough. I mean, like I said, I had an opportunity in the private world, and if that opportunity to present itself, I probably still would have left education. I had the blessing from my wife, but I just think that there's not enough questions being asked, and there's more compliance, and how we're going to get through with this. It's always like, oh, it's going to end, it's going to end, it's going to end. Well, 18 months later, and we're back to basically square one, I think, right, with the mask mandate here in Illinois. So I'm big on choice. I've heard a lot of what you guys have said, and if you want to put a mask on, go right ahead. And if you don't want to wear one, I don't think you should either. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I do have to jump off this call.
Oh, Dan. Okay, no problem.
Yeah,
have fun with your kiddo, and we'll talk soon. Thanks for joining us and for sharing.
Absolutely, guys.
Happy Saturday.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fascinating too to hear people's frustration with the teacher union. They control all of educational policy in Illinois. This is a result of a power pendulum that has swung so far away from the people. So Awake Illinois is going to be putting out some questions for parents to be asking of their educators. And, a lot of people are having open houses with their kids' schools, curriculum nights, at the beginning of the school year. I think this is a great time to really start a dialogue with educators and say, how are you feeling about education policies right now? What are your thoughts on how the union is or isn't supporting your rights when it comes to this latest vaccine mandate? All of these questions that need to be asked of educators, because we need buy-in from them too, right? So I think opening that dialogue and really trying to see, is this the power struggle we want to continue with for however many more generations? I'm gonna let you guys kind of have some more final thoughts. A couple things that stuck out to me just real quickly. I'm so grateful that when I had the chicken pox, I got it late. I was in 8th grade when I got it. My brother was 8 years younger than me. So once I got it, I had to share my cup with him and everything. And it was just sort of this funny thing. Like, we just got to get through it and, you'll be good. And now look, we have a vaccine for it that's been very heavily tested. But I'm so grateful that, I could still go back to school once I was done with it. Right? Like there wasn't this fear and paranoia over something that was contagious and was, highly contagious. My cousin actually got gangrene and had to go into the hospital into the bubble lung thing. I mean, she had a really rough go of it, but it never left an imprint on me that somehow, we weren't still going to progress and be able to be kids and be able to, live life freely. I'm grateful that I didn't have that stigma that these kids are dealing with now. And we have 3 children, 7th grade, 5th grade, and 1st grade. And fortunately, we have a sense of humor and we try and process it with them. They're very aware of what, the advocacy we're doing. But there are so many kids that are being stunted by this fear and this safetyism. And we should be so grateful that these kids are, they're doing okay with this virus when they get it. The statistics are not there that these kids are, as Judy Caroff with IDPH calls them, little vectors. Disgusting.
It is.
These
That is disgusting.
kids are free to be kids, right? And we're trying, and there's more work to be done. I'm going to give you guys a final thought to share, and then I'm going to play this silly video of JP Steers for people to get a chuckle. Why don't I start with you, Jeff?
So yeah, final thoughts. I said from the beginning, we ought to hold hands and all get this thing called COVID. It is real. It's not leaving us. We need to figure out how to deal with it. We need to figure out how to live, not just be alive. That's been our stance as a family since March of 20. I mean, we really went and talked to my parents and my wife's parents and came up with an agreement basically between us that if anybody was sick, please stay home. But otherwise, we're going to have Easter. We're going to have family events. We're going to celebrate birthdays. We're going to go to kids' games. We are going to live our life. And I just challenge others to come back and live your life. The government isn't the answer to our problems. They're the problem. And we need to stand up for the overreach that's going on right now. They've admitted that they don't have the power to do what they did by House Bill, 4135. I just wish we could hurry and challenge it before that thing even had a chance to pass. And it won't pass, I don't believe. I think there will be enough advocation from firms like you and from Steve and I, and we stand for our students, that I think we'll get the word out that this is not good for us. And if the general public would read the House Bill 4135, I don't think they would agree with it either.
Right.
But I challenge all that listen just to get involved and stand up for what we believe. And we can't let our freedom go because, as Steve and I have been saying from the beginning, and unfortunately have been right. I mean, it's just going to be the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I mean, it's critical race theory and, sex education in the 2nd grade now. And what is the line in the And what is the line in the sand that finally really irritates people and they do get involved? They should be now. I should have been 20 years ago, Shannon.
Right.
I should have got involved 20 years ago, and that maybe we wouldn't be in this situation today. But I didn't think there was a problem. We have a problem now, Shannon. That's all. I'm going to leave it with that.
I'm so glad we've connected, because I do think that some more transformative changes are going to come thanks to all of us banding together. So I'm wishing your senior in high school a better year, and whatever we can do to shine light on what's going on in your community, please let us know, because you aren't alone. I just got chilled. We're all in this together. So it's great.
Absolutely.
It's great to connect with you here. And one of the things you said real quickly, Jeff, I don't know if you're familiar with Nathaniel Rateliff. He's like a folk rock guy. He's a cool guy. Check him out. I like his music. But you touched on something that said, when are you really going to stand up, right? Have you really done everything? And there's a song, and it's called Hey Mama, and it's talking about his mom, who I believe was a single mother, and the words of wisdom she passed on to him. And she said, you ain't gone far enough to say, at least I've tried. You ain't worked hard enough to say, well, I've done mine. You ain't run far enough to say my legs have failed. You ain't gone far enough. You ain't worked hard enough. You ain't run far enough to say, ain't gonna get any better. And that's the truth, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the truth. None of us can say we've done enough. And if we want it to get better, we got to do all the above. So thanks, Jeff. Look forward to talking to you in the future about more of our advocacy efforts. Sheri, closing remark?
I wish more people would read and understand the rights that they already have as an American sovereign citizen in this country. No one gives you your rights. Administrative bodies do not give you your rights. The government doesn't give you your rights. You have rights, and we need to start exercising them. And we can't be scared of a one-day suspension, right? I mean, so what? I mean, if enough students don't comply, I mean, honestly, are they really going to suspend everyone? What's that going to look like for the school? Mandates crave non-compliance, okay? Because this is America, and we've been, all of us here and many people listening, we've been to board meetings, we've been talking to our boards, we email them constantly, we email the school constantly. It's getting us nowhere. We have to do something different. And I think that different is more people not complying. That's just what I think. I mean, complying through this whole thing is, it's getting worse. Now people are fearing another school shutdown, or
That's a rumor.
what are they going to do then? So the parents are mad and worried about that right now. Well, then why are you still complying? Because what are you going to do when the school shuts down? What's your answer then? Get on Facebook and be angry?
Right. Get off your buns and start.
You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That's actually the definition of insanity. But
amen, girl. That's right. That's right. Well, I appreciate you sharing your tale, and I know that you're not stopping anytime soon. You're a rock star mama, and you're gonna get Palatine booties moving. So thanks for what you're doing. Steve, any final remarks?
So I put a lot of things on my Twitter every so often, you know, might be carrying a chainsaw around. People kind of make a joke about it or whatever. I get some hate over it, this and that, but it's
a lot of love too, though, Steve.
The purpose of it is this. People like me, you guys, Jeff, we're not scared of things. We're not scared. We're not scared of a governor that's doing overreach on us. There's a song I really like. It's called "My Way of Life Ain't Dead," I think, and you know, it talks about people like me and Jeff, and our way of life is not dead, and there is a whole lot more out there like us than people realize. And it's not just a guy with a cowboy hat; it's a mom in Naperville that, you know, wants the best for her kids, and she's not scared either. And I think when we take fear out of the equation, like good people like Dan, he is now in a position of power because he took the fear away. He took away everything that they're trying to threaten him with. And I think if we stand on that we can save our republic in Illinois. And right now we don't have a republic. We have a dictator situation, and he believes he has the power that he has, and he may, you know, I don't know what his motives are. You know, he may totally be that scared and think that, you know, this is the best thing to do. But we've pointed out again and again and again what successes can come out of local control. And really, if you have taxation without representation, that does not work in America. And that is not what our men and women are fighting for. And that's not what we're going to fight for. We're going to fight for our freedoms and our representation at a local level. And Sheri, that may mean your school board, if they have that control, will say they're going to put a mask on your child in school. But they made that decision themselves, not somebody else. So I guess my final thoughts are, we are here, we are fully awake, and there's a hell of a lot more of us out here than people realize, and we are not scared of things. We are in a position of power because we're not fearful, and we're faithful people, and we know that our rights are given to us by a higher power than the government. And that's how we're going to stand, and that's how we're going to go forward.
Thank you, Steve. Well said. Hear, hear. I'm going to save the JP Sears thing I'll post it later. I'm not going to end with that. I wanted to touch on the tragedy of our lost military in Afghanistan. It's timely. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and our two older kiddos, they're obviously familiar with the 9/11 tragedy. And we watched a movie a couple nights ago, about the World Trade Center. And now that we're seeing what's happened in Afghanistan, I don't know if any of you are familiar, but one of the Marines who is no longer with us, I wanted to say his name. And his name is Lance Corporal Rylee McCollum. He's 20 years old. He was born February of 2001. And he was a baby when 9/11 happened, and he was stationed in Afghanistan. And he's no longer with us. And we thank him for his service. And to all of the military veterans, we thank you. And we want our children and our posterity to love this country, right? And to have every opportunity to prosper here. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're doing this. So in honor of this military gentleman of 20 years old and his fallen brothers and sisters in arms, we thank them, and we love this country. We love our fellow citizens, and we are not afraid, Steve. We're going to keep going, aren't we? And some of us may well be on the steps of the Capitol on Tuesday when they go into special session to remind them that they are there for the will of the people, not for the governor, not for an oligarch, not for a special interest, but for the people of Illinois. And so I salute all of you, and I'm so grateful. And I wish I could give all of you guys a hug for joining me on a Saturday. But we have the blessing of a beautiful weekend, and I hope you all have a great one. And I'm going to share this later with people who weren't able to tune in. Hopefully it inspires people, and maybe we'll do this again to continue sharing perspectives of courage and advocacy. So God bless you all, and thank you for doing this. And till next time.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.